everybody, I'm Debby Montgomery Johnson, founder of the nonprofit The Woman Behind the Smile, and your host of Stand Up and Speak Up, a show that is about each and every one of us. Many of us have something we're hiding, something we're ashamed of, something that through no fault of our own or through our own making we keep hidden, and that in turn keeps us hidden from each other and the world. Good people go through terrible situations. Wise people know when and how to let it go. Everything that happens to us helps us grow, and while it may be hard to see it right away, the most important thing to do is to change your perception about your circumstances. Regardless of what your personal experiences or traumas have been, this showcase series is designed to ignite the light in you, as well as providing safe harbor, education, personal growth, and resources so that no matter where you are on your journey, you'll have the courage to move on when you're ready. Stand Up and Speak Up features ordinary people who've been through extraordinary situations and struggles and found the courage to step out from behind their smiles and speak up about their experiences and the lessons gleaned from those experiences. Everybody heals at a different pace, and we recognize that. So come on in, have a listen, and enjoy the ride at your own speed.
It's a beautiful day in paradise, and this is Debby coming to you from South Florida, and I'm so excited again to be here. I have a very special guest, a friend of mine who I actually have met in person several times, and I've spent some time with her in California, and she's just a phenomenal lady coming to us from Florida. Tallahassee, right? Tallahassee, coming to us from Tallahassee. So it's the Florida Girls Show today. And Kathryn and I have important messages because we're in a very tenuous financial time with the way world is going. And some of us have had some oops in our lives that have had some financial missteps, as my friend Deborah Morrison likes to call them. And Kathryn is the champion of rising like a phoenix out of the ashes of financial distress. Welcome, my friend. It's quite an intro.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here, Deb.
Well, it's my pleasure. And the last time you and I were together was actually on a webinar that you did with Dr. Tim McGinnis and I for SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams. And it was all about bankruptcy and recovering from a financial, oh my gosh, the things we're going to talk about today. But that was specific to recovering from financial fraud, which was a very interesting webinar for me to attend. And I thank you for that.
I think I learned more than I taught. That was so interesting.
Well, in the world today where fraud is just rampant, and financial fraud in particular with pig butchering, which I think we talked about. Pig butchering is the financial fraud that's happening now with relationship fraud or relationship scams, where it includes cryptocurrency and investments. And that's happening to millennials, it's happening to the boomers, it's happening to everybody. And it's so difficult because there's no way to get, well, I can't say there's no way to get that money back, but it's very, very difficult to get any of that money back. But it's a shorter thing. It happens much faster.
And since we've spoken, I've had the opportunity to talk to a potential client who invested her cryptocurrency with a broker that promised to get returns for her. They were lending out their money. She was depositing her money in their company, and then they were lending it out, and two companies went bankrupt, and she's got $700,000 of crypto money tied up in those companies.
Well, I'm not going to say yay or nay on crypto. I've got a nephew who's in his late 20s, and he is all over me. And Deb, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I'm thinking, I talked to my friend Deborah Morrison, financial planner, and she said, well, if you got money set aside for your great grandchildren, maybe, but not for my future. So I'm still, jury's out with me.
Yeah.
In our show today, we're not going to specifically talk about that, but I like to start with going back to tell the audience who you are. Where did you grow up? And a little bit about your family situation.
I grew up in Park Ridge, Illinois, just outside Chicago. I went to church next to Hillary Clinton's church, and never knew Hillary, but she was the first president of my high school's. She was the first student body president of my high school.
Okay.
My brother was in her class. And probably my first brush with financial insecurity or being aware of financial insecurity was when my father died when I was 14. And my stay-at-home mom basically went from being a stay-at-home mom to working 2 jobs, 14 hours a week, 7 days, or 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was keenly aware of financial insecurity. And it became part of a mindset. And it seemed like I never had money set aside. But the family stories were all about my Aunt Bert, Albertine Hathaway. She was my father's favorite aunt, and she died about 6 months before I was born. But she was Great Aunt Bert, the lawyer. And she had all sorts of quotable quotes that everybody said and stories about her. She became a member of the Illinois Bar in 1903.
Oh, wow.
But she couldn't even vote on the laws and got kind of laughed out of the courtroom. So being a trial lawyer was not really going to work out too well for her. But she became very involved in the women's suffrage movement. And in fact, so did her mother. And one of my cousins, distant cousins, found a picture of our mutual great-grandmother, Emma Clark Hathaway, at the 1910 Women's Suffrage Breakfast, standing there proud as punch. And so Aunt Bert traveled all over the Midwest giving talks about women's suffrage and lobbying men to vote. And that was very dangerous business. You know, women ended up in jail, men came and threw things at them. So I never miss an opportunity to vote in honor of Aunt Bert, who gave so much so that we could all vote.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, you think of, we go back to like Rosie the Riveter, and my grandmother was working. I always say she was the Rosie Riveter of the family, because, and it's really interesting to look back at the women in our lives to see what kind of roles they had, because typically you hear the stay-at-home moms, or they're on a farm somewhere and they're working in a farm. But when I heard about Aunt Bert, and she was one of the reasons, you got a puppy.
Oh, I got a kitty.
Oh, kitty.
He was out in the rain, and I couldn't find him to get him to come in. So now he's come in and
he's visiting with us.
Yes. That's my boyfriend. That's his name, my boyfriend.
My boyfriend. He's a safe boyfriend.
Yes.
There you go. But anyway, it makes me feel good to think about our grandmas and great grandmas and aunts and whatever that have done some really cool things. And she was a pioneer in her day, literally, and in the courtroom. So how cool was that? But your mom, well, after your dad passed, I'm sorry about that. When my husband passed away, my youngest was 15, and that's a really tough age to lose your dad. And I think as a girl, you must have been pretty close to your dad.
I was very close.
And now mom was gone because she was working. So I heard you talk one time about feeling that you'd been abandoned by both parents at this point. How did you really feel? How did that make you feel?
Well, I was the stoic one. I was, in one way, I was abandoned and sad, and I probably, that may have been some of the source of my interesting acting out. I'm still making it up, my 15-year-old year up to my mother. She lives with me now. She's 96. But in another way, you know, I stepped up, I took responsibility, I didn't cry, I took care of my little sister. You know, mother had taught us both how to cook, so it seemed like we were home alone a lot that year. And my mother's a hero. She really is. She never wept and moaned. She got out there and did what she had to do to make sure that there was food on the table. And she had been a stay-at-home mom all those years, but she brushed up her skills and worked her way up in the work world. But there was always, in my mind, there was never enough money. And that's a mindset. If you hang on to it, it expresses in your life, even if you make a lot of money. there are women who, I forget what the statistic is, but women who make a couple $100,000 a year are still living in fear of becoming a bag lady.
Right.
And I was definitely one of those women. As you know, I went to law school, I established my own firm, but I was still very money. There was never anything left over at the end of the pay period. I wasn't saving, and I got into a bit of a snarl, actually.
Well, we'll get into that, because I want to go back. I'm thinking about your mother, because your mom is a couple of years older than my father. And my mom and dad and they're 87 and 92, and they're nearby. We've had a lot of discussions about how their growing up had modeled my life. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking of my mother's refrigerator. And I wrote an article about the refrigerator. You can tell a generation by the refrigerator. Mine is fairly empty and clean. I use what I need, no leftovers. My daughter's is a mixture of mine and my mother's, and my mother's is packed full of little itty bitty. She's going to die when she hears this because I'm telling everybody, but every little scrap is saved from the night before and put into a little baggie, or I even bought little Tupperwares, and she likes the little baggies better. Was your mother in that mindset? Did she? Because I think it comes from, they went through the Depression. They didn't have a lot, and they saved everything and stretched everything.
My mother didn't experience the Depression the way other people did. She didn't know there was a Depression going on. Her stepfather was, what do they call them? He had stills, and he made alcohol during.
He was a bootlegger.
He was a bootlegger. That's what he was. He was a bootlegger. They had the only paved driveway in the neighborhood. And they always had enough money. She never knew there was a Depression going on. My family, my cousins and everything, still live in this area that our families came to in the early 1700s. And my cousin became a minister, and she ministered to a church, a shotgun's throw from where my grandfather's house was. And she went out to visit all the shut-ins when she first took over this church. And one woman brought her into the house graciously and said, "Honey, we knew when we heard you were going to be our minister that we were going to love you. We always bought our liquor from your granddaddy."
Oops.
So that wasn't Mom's experience. Okay. She didn't experience that. And she seems to be she does save everything, come to think of it. And I throw it away. So my refrigerator looks like yours.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's part of our routine now, as we go over once a week and clean it out. She can't see it, but bless her heart, I love her, and she's a great cook. So your mom was working all this time. You didn't talk about savings. She was living, putting food on the table.
Yeah.
Did anybody talk about finances? Because I know in our house it was, you don't talk about money because you come across being, you don't want to be, braggadocious or whatever. It's no one's business.
The only thing we talked about was that it wasn't being spent, that there was, we always had the clothes we needed and stuff. And after I graduated from college, I went up, joined a theater company and traveled around the country. And then I went up to Chicago to live and be independent. And after I left home, my parents my mother and stepfather had to sell the house. And I don't think they filed a bankruptcy, but they moved from a very nice house in Boca Raton to a 2-bedroom apartment on the beach that was not so nice.
Wow. So they've had their ups and downs. You went to college and got a degree in music.
Yes.
That pays well, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It put groceries on the table, but it never quite made it to rent.
It must have been fun. I've actually seen you dancing with the divas recently.
Oh, I didn't learn to dance until about 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
When I was doing musical comedy and they had to choreograph for me, the choreographer was heard to lament, "Oh God, can she walk and sing?" So,
Well, that's funny. But so the point here is that you've seen lack in your life and you've seen excess or abundance or enough. You've seen enough.
I've seen enough.
Seen
I've
enough.
seen-
So how did you get into the legal business and especially into your specialty of bankruptcy?
I was very lucky. All right, Kat.
Hi, buddy.
He's very unself-conscious.
There you go.
After my theater career, when my mother had to sell all of her green stamps books to buy me a plane ticket to come home from Chicago, 7 months pregnant with no visible means of support. And I moved into that 2-bedroom apartment on the beach with them and my little sister, and my stepbrother had a financial collapse, and we were all living there in this little apartment on the beach. Well, on the beach.
Hey, beach living has a new meaning.
And I went to a party of my voice teacher and ran into a family friend, and he said, "You need a career. You need to become a legal secretary. Come work for me." So eventually I did go to work for him, and I loved it. And he said, "You need to marry a lawyer." And I said, "Marry one? I'd sooner be one." He goes, "That's it. We'll make you a lawyer." And he began his campaign to convince me to go to law school. And all of the time I have my little guardian angel, Aunt Bert, going, "Go to law school. You can at least practice law now." So that was how I got into that. And I graduated from FSU Law in 1986. And I have never been sorry. Money has not always been abundant, but I love what I do every day, still 36 years later.
Well, and at that point, knowledge became power for you.
Oh, yes, in a way.
Well, yeah. And so it's important that each one of us learns something new every day. And it could be about finances, especially now. It's interesting. We were talking with Deborah Morrison earlier, and Deborah does Women Navigating Finances. And I'm part of that group because even though I've had banking experience and legal experience and all that, I still, at my age, want to know what's the best thing for me to do financially. Because when I was growing up, and part of me, here's what I call, in promoting your show, the B word, bankruptcy. It's got such a negative feeling in me. I don't know where that came from. It
came from society, my God.
Okay.
Especially in your parents' generation. Take bankruptcy. Oh my God, it was the worst thing in the world.
Why do you think that was so? Because it shows that you couldn't make it.
People take it as a failure. They take it as a personal failure.
Okay.
As you don't pay your bills, you're a bad person. Oh, the collections letters my clients get, you broke your promise. It reduces you to a 3-year-old, the way people talk to you about paying debt. Sometimes life happens. Bankruptcies in the Bible, Deuteronomy chapter 15, there shall be forgiveness of debt. And the law of forgiveness of debt is a law of prosperity to the nation who forgives.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah, it's and our Constitution, Article 1, there shall be bankruptcy courts. It is a necessary safety valve in a healthy economy, because what happens when people are driven down by debt is they don't participate in the economy. They don't buy your goods. They stop putting money in the bank. They keep it in the mattress because that's the only place it's safe. So actually not allowing bankruptcy or making people think that they can't invest in their futures, they have to pay for their pasts, turns people into paupers when they're old. so they can't participate in the economy. Because they couldn't save for retirement because they were paying for their past. Maybe they lost a job. Maybe they were sick and they couldn't work. Maybe like my mom, a spouse died that was the principal breadwinner, and she didn't have the skills that he had to make a lot of money. There are all kinds of reasons for bankruptcy, and it is a good safety valve so that people can start afresh to rise from the ashes.
I think it's really it's important to talk about it because I know after Lou died and I was running his company, I was doing pretty well. I made some goofs, especially after the financial fraud. And Marty Ward, a friend of ours, Marty sat me down and she goes, you need to just consider declaring bankruptcy. And when I heard that, she said some marvelous things to me. That's not one of the things that I wanted to hear. I was like, not in your life. You know, I wouldn't consider that because just like you said, I grew up thinking that that was a show of a failure, that I couldn't take care of my financial business. And that would be just saying, I'm done. Now, the one thing I didn't learn out of all that was the credit card that was in my husband's name only, that I kept paying on for 2 years. When I finally woke up and realized I wasn't responsible for that card. Morally, I felt it, but legally I wasn't. I called him up and I said, you know what? I can't do this. This isn't mine. Well, why were you doing it in the first place? I wish I had talked to you back then, because there are things that we don't know. We think we do, but we don't know what we're responsible for, especially after the death of a spouse or divorce or whatever. So,
yeah, your debt dies with you.
Which is something we need to think about if we've got debt now. There was a credit card that somehow my son got added onto. I don't think I did it. You never know how it happens, but his name was on it. He was buying a home and he did a credit report and it showed up on his credit report. He goes, Mom, why am I on this card? I'm thinking, I have no idea. So I ended up getting him off. But again, if something were to happen to me, except for my joint card with my husband, everything company-wise is in my name and not any of the kids.
So if you died with debt on those cards, you're in probate, your assets would be sold, non-exempt assets would be sold to pay your debt, and then the rest would be inherited by your family. And in my probate or estate planning work, that's something we talk about. Where is your debt? Where are your assets? How can we pass your assets so that they don't get consumed by your debt?
Well,
and there are legal ways to do that.
Yeah, probably why I have an insurance policy for the company to pay off that line of credit.
Very good.
Otherwise, I have no debt anymore, except for my small company, because I'm so conscious of it now. I mean, I'm the kind that pays off the credit card every week.
Good.
I don't, especially in today's economy and rates going up and that kind of stuff. I'm at the point where I need to get another car. And one of the options was to buy the one that I have. The 3-year lease, it only has 17,000 miles on it, but I'm watching the interest rates going up. And I'm thinking, maybe I don't want to buy that car. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. But many people that we're working with can't even think about buying a car. They've had a tremendous loss and are struggling to pay the rent, put food on the table, maybe buy medicine, keep gas in the car. At what point do they come to somebody like you and say, Kathryn, help me. What is a step? What do I do? Because I wouldn't know. You know, they might have that thinking about B is a bad word. B is not a bad word for you.
I see a lot of people come to me who should have been there years before, that they liquidated their protected retirements to pay their debt. So when they come to me, they have nothing. And that's not when you want to come to a bankruptcy lawyer. When you want to come is when you realize you can't pay from your current income, you can't pay your debt. And then you need to have somebody look at the situation and say, well, these are your assets that would be available to creditors if they started to sue you. liquidate those assets, get a loan on your car or finance your car maybe, or sell your car and use that money to pay your creditors. You can't carry a paid for car through a bankruptcy. So there are things you can do, but don't ever give away what no one can take away. And what they cannot take away is your retirement, your 401k, your IRA, and in Florida, the equity in your home. So we don't want to give those things away. The state of Florida has laws to help you protect your assets so that you're not on the dole later. They want you to be able to take care of yourself and your family. And that's why in Florida, your home is exempt from claims of creditors under the Florida Constitution.
No matter how big or little the house is, the home is protected.
$1 million home, protected.
Okay, so this is the state of Florida. You are a Florida licensed attorney.
Right.
If we have people,
every state, people would want to look at what is protected from claims of creditors. And you don't do this on your own. Don't do a Google search. It's worth an initial consultation with a bankruptcy lawyer to find out. If they charge you $250 for an initial consult, that's very little money compared to what you have to lose.
Okay.
Find out what's the best way to approach your debt and do it early. Don't act in desperation thinking you have to pay your debt, because there may be another way to handle it without losing your future.
Now, it just came to mind too, taxes come into this. Are you a tax attorney? Do you have attorneys that you work with in that respect?
Bankruptcy has a lot of good solutions for taxes, and I do those.
Okay.
When people haven't done their taxes, I refer them out to an accountant or a tax attorney to handle that. Don't call those companies in California, please. They are not as, I've had so many clients come to me, well, I've got the tax experts in California handling this for me. And it's like, oh yeah, they didn't tell you about bankruptcy until after there was a lien on your property. Yeah, they're real good. Come on. Once there's an IRS lien on your property, you have to pay the taxes, even if they could have been discharged in bankruptcy. I can make, you have to at least pay the value of your non-exempt property. And that includes your IRA and the equity in your home. So basically, once they've got a lien, they've got you under their thumbs in a new and uncomfortable way. So when you have that kind of problem, get advice from a bankruptcy lawyer too, because this company told them there is no lien. They came to me and I said, sorry, the lien was put on last month. I have, when I work closely with the tax experts, I have beaten the lien by a day getting the bankruptcy filed. And once the bankruptcy is filed, the lien doesn't attach. But it's an emergency.
This is the important part, because most of the women that I'm working with, they're a little bit older, 50 and up, let's put it that way, still young at heart, but we may not have a spouse through divorce or death, and may or may not be working, may or may not have been involved with the bills. And this is for men too, because when in the bank, I worked with a lot of men who lost their wives and they were lost. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're just so emotional about what's happened anyway.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have thought until Marty said something to me about filing bankruptcy, I would have got, not in your life. I would have eaten popcorn every night rather than put a meal on the table just to save my coins so that I could pay off, whatever bills I had. We have to get past the emotional stuff.
And the pride. And what would the neighbors say? And what would my parents say? I can't tell you how many people, oh, if my father knew, he'd disinherit me. Well, I bet if you gave your father a chance to understand and update, this is a different economy than what he grew up in.
Yeah.
You know?
It might help you.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but at least
maybe he shouldn't. I've done many bankruptcies for the parents who help too much and can't pay their own bills.
Yeah, there's a fine line between help and enabling. I know, been there. But you have a great platform. When you and I were together in California, tell everybody, why did you go to Awakening Giants, which was not called Awakening Giants at the time, but it is now. It's Awakening Giants. Yeah. You and I saw each other and spent a week together in San Diego. What was your reasoning behind doing that? What did you want to do back in 2000, whenever, 17?
Well, first of all, I was really excited about the opportunity to stretch myself, to do physical things that, we did. She caught the trapeze when she jumped off the phone pole. I climbed up the phone pole, 40 feet about.
Yeah,
it was big, and jumped for the trapeze, but I didn't catch it.
But you jumped.
Tragic fly.
You jumped. That's your Tinkerbell moment.
It was my Tinkerbell moment. I loved it. But I was interested in the physical challenges because I was 62 and I had done things like this when I was 15, but I needed to know that I was still strong and vibrant and capable of undertaking impossible feats. And so I wanted to do that. And I really wanted to get to know what other women were doing that made them women of power, because I had come to see myself as a woman of power by that point in my life, and see how they serve the world, and maybe up my platform so that I could serve the world better. So it was a wonderful adventure, and I met the most marvelous people. That wasn't the first time I met Debbie, but it was. I met many other wonderful people and made some lifelong lasting friends of women of real substance. Really.
Well, it made it an international adventure for me with Kezia and Debbie and Sammy and all the girls in England, and then the women in the United States and all over. And it's the friendships that we developed from that. But it was through the challenge course, through the working with the wolves, the fire, sleeping out with the wolves that one night was, besides being cold, it was, but doing that. But the other part of it was speaking on a stage. And you gave a brilliant expose. I wouldn't want to call it that. I guess it's a brilliant talk about
disclosure.
rise, because your platform became Rise Like a Phoenix. Can you explain that? And this is really important for anybody that's had some financial trouble. You can rise from the ashes. And so, Kathryn, tell us about what RISE is.
Well, can I tell this? Do we have time for me to tell the story of how I got there?
Absolutely.
So, the economy turned in 2008, 2009. People stopped paying their mortgages and started paying their credit cards. Bankruptcy went way down, which was my primary source of business back then. I had been a very busy, very successful board certified bankruptcy lawyer for a long time. And that was what I did. I didn't make money at other areas of practice. And I struggled to hang on for several years, but I got deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. And they started cutting lines of credit. I had credit cards that I hadn't used that had, lines of credit on them. They started cutting what I could borrow. And I got in debt with personal taxes and payroll taxes, and couldn't pay 2 mortgages. And I finally had to file a bankruptcy in my own court. Oh my God, it was the most embarrassing thing. And if knowing what I know now, really because of joining Women's Prosperity Network, of which Debbie and I are both members, I learned a great deal about business and prosperity from that group of women. But in 2013, I I knew I could not turn anywhere else. There were lawsuits against me, and I had thought I had done everything I could do, and I filed a bankruptcy. And I thought I would die. So now I can really empathize with my clients. And I started studying with Nancy Matthews, the leader, one of the leaders, the co-founders of Women's Prosperity Network, studying Napoleon Hill's
Science,
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich, yeah.
And Science of Getting Rich. I was studying them both at the same time and studying them hard. And one day I found something in Think and Grow Rich that's where he was having financial challenge. And he said, pick a number that you need to make and just hold that number. And so I looked through my QuickBooks program and realized that I had once collected $40,000 in a month. Hadn't done it recently, but it had been done. So I picked that number and I called up my girls. This is March 1st. So far, we may have collected $40,000 for January and February, and I had a staff to pay. I had another lawyer to pay, as well as myself. And called the girls and I says, we're going to collect $40,000 this month. That was the morning of March 2nd, I think. They called me back that afternoon and said, okay, we got 20 of it in the mail. So we've got half the month done. And I said, no, that goes back to January and February. We have to collect $40,000 a month this year. And we never, ever missed it. Just by deciding, just by stepping up and saying, this is the number. And we paid off all the taxes, my taxes. The firm became debt-free again. I caught up. I was 3 months behind on the mortgages on my building and my house. That all got caught up. And we ended, everybody got raises just from making that single commitment. But I had to take responsibility for the decisions that I had made and that we create our own experience. And what I had thought was that all my prosperity came from doing bankruptcy and that service. So what I came up with was is it an anagram? No.
Oh, for RISE?
Yeah, for RISE. I came up with RISE so I would remember what I had done. I took responsibility that I had accepted a limited universe, that I had accepted and been accepting since I was a child, the fact that there was never enough money and that my flow of prosperity could be cut off. And I took responsibility for that belief and for the fact that I'd made some decisions that weren't working out so well for me, you know? And the I stands for to imagine your future. Imagine, feel what it would feel like to have the bills paid on time. And that relaxed, happy feeling of knowing that everything was in divine order. And I did do that exercise. And I saw the 40,000 and coming into the bank every month. Oh, and by the way, in that March, we collected 60,000, which made up for January and February. So it was a dramatic, immediate change from making that decision. Thank you, Napoleon Hill.
Well, you opened yourself up to receiving. And a lot of people are going to say, well, this is woo-woo, but abundance is out there. And I have to learn to really believe this myself, that it is there. It's going to come. You get those little nudges saying, try this, try that. And that's when you have to take responsibility for working those nudges. Okay, so we're on.
The S in RISE stands for serve better than anyone. And my reputation in the community was that I gave service, that I went absolutely to the mat for my clients, but I had skills I wasn't using. I had always done estate planning and probate, and I did it like a throwaway. I didn't consider it a valuable service. I didn't charge much for it. And I considered it a loss leader to get people to know me. And I realized that other people were charging a lot of money for what I could do better than they could, because I had always done it. I did it as a paralegal. And I got good grades in those classes and I was good at it. So I began think of, and I don't think I even changed my website. I began to think of myself as an estate planning lawyer and probate lawyer and charge my value. I don't know whether I charge more or less than other lawyers now, but I know I'm getting recompensed at my hourly rate for the work I put into it. And I started attracting from all over the country people referring cases to me and bringing me work. And I had a good website, and I made sure that I had articles about estate planning and probate on my website, and business just started to come to me. And I was really grateful for it. And that's the E in RISE. Express gratitude about every little thing. I'm grateful for this cup of coffee this morning. I am grateful for my wonderful staff. I have the best staff that I've had in 35 years. It is these women are amazing. I attracted them by right of consciousness. Oh my God, they're wonderful. I express gratitude for all of my clients. I really attract the nicest people and people who are ready to change the way they think about their money, to imagine, and they teach me things too. Let me give you that, because they are, I've met some amazing people, just amazing people. And in using this recipe, I was ready for the next economy, a collapse, which is happening in my business right now. Bankruptcy is at an all-time low. Nobody's filing bankruptcy because this time the mortgage company said, oh, COVID? Well, just call us up and we'll give you a relief on your mortgage, even if you're working, even if you're still making money. And people got all the COVID money that they got, and they stopped paying their mortgages and started paying their credit cards and paid their credit cards off. And the mortgage companies, unlike in 2008 and 9, the mortgage companies are actually working with people in redrafting their mortgages. And my bankruptcy business that used to be 60, 70% of the whole firm is now about 20%.
Wow.
But my estate planning and probate businesses have expanded just by magic. Not by magic.
It's not magic. It's hard. It's work.
Well, in my mind, it's by the law of attraction, because I really did not change my advertising. I didn't change my website. I just thought about how I could serve people better than anybody else. And the business came. And when people said they were so happy with the way I served them, I said, tell Google, will you do me a Google review? And people call me up and say, I've read all your Google reviews, you're already hired. What do I have to do? Yeah, I need your help. And I've been extremely grateful for the people that I've met that I've helped, who helped me.
I think what's happening too is as we're getting older and looking to maybe retire, that's the R word in our family, it's never going to happen, because I think my husband would be like a bird in a cage if 1 week of COVID and he was ready to escape. But we're looking at where are we going to be financially, because our parents are living to their 90s. My dad never expected to live past 50, and he's 92, going to be 93. And fortunately, I'm here to help. He and mom are right nearby. Many parents at that age don't have anybody that's helping them. And they're thinking, where do I go? Where am I going to live? What happens if I get sick? Do I need assisted living and all these things? And our age group, same thing could happen to us. So yeah. I don't want my kids taking care of me. So we're looking to plan the next third of our lives. I expect to live to 90 something, 100.
I do too.
100.
Yeah.
But the money has to last. So that's where you're coming in now. Right?
So yes, I help people plan their futures with estate planning, save as much of the generational wealth as possible when we do the probate, and try to maximize what they can inherit. And a lot of that maximization is helping people not pay their parents' debts. If it's possible to declare things as exempt from claims of creditors, I do it. I'm real mindful of that because I know their parents wanted to leave them money, not debt. And where possible, I maximize that. So, but I'm also having people in their 50s and 60s coming into my office with a lot of debt and saying, oh, we're having to use our retirement to pay for it. Stop. Don't use that. You need your retirement because you're going to live for another 20 or 30 years. Let's get rid, while you're still working, get rid of the past, file bankruptcy on the past, save your exempt assets so that you can start investing in maxing out your retirements, not using your 401k or your IRA to pay off past debt. You need that for your future, and the government, the laws want you to have that for your future.
I'm just at a stupor of thought because all these things are going through my mind. I know exactly why people are wanting to do that. They feel responsible for those debt and they want to take care of them. And that's,
I honor them and I appreciate them for their honest hearts, but I'm seeing them 30 years from now. I get a lot of really old people in my office, some victims of scams that we have to file bankruptcies for, but that used all their money, all their retirement to pay their debt. And now they've got nothing and they've still got debt. And somebody's trying to take away their house or things, that is tragic.
Yeah.
I want to stop that from happening to as many people as I can.
So bankruptcy in your world, and it should be in our world, it's just a tool. It's a tool in the toolbox. It may not be for everybody, but it may be for you or the listener, because, and I find this very attractive about you, Kathryn, is that you lived what you preach. You know what it's like to feel bankruptcy. You know what it's like to feel that shame of walking into that. And it's not shame. And we all shame.
It was shame.
I know, but why? Why do we shame?
They were my colleagues that were there at my meeting of creditors asking questions.
Yeah.
They were people who referred me cases who were there. I mean, it was truly horrible. And my former judge still refers me cases. He says, whenever he's retired into a large firm now, and he does big bankruptcy, chapter 11. When people come up to him in Rotary or in church and they say, I don't know what to do or where to go, he says, call Kathryn. And I consider that the highest compliment. But he was on the bench when I filed that bankruptcy.
But he saw that you were, I will say it's humble enough to understand that you needed help. And he's also seen you rise out of it and make something good. It's taking your pain and making it your purpose and now your passion.
You know something about that, don't you?
I do. And that's why I attract so many wonderful people, because we've all been through something. And it is humiliating. It is, that victim shame, that victim blame. And it's not, you could have hid under a rock. You could have stayed there.
I thought about it, as everybody does. I thought about it. But
what got you to rise up again then? Aunt Bert?
Well, it may have been the spirit of Aunt Bert.
Over here on the shoulder saying, get your butt up.
I wrote a book.
There you go. What's it called?
Rise Like the Phoenix, the 12 Steps of Bankruptcy. And I put the process of bankruptcy to the tune of the 12 steps of AA, of the recovery movement. I had taken a course in the 12 steps at church about, 30 years ago now. And I realized then that it fit bankruptcy like a glove. I should write a book. Took me 20 years to write it. But it's less than 100 pages. It's available on Amazon. It treats bankruptcy as a spiritual growth opportunity. And it is a spiritual growth opportunity.
Everything in life is.
Yes, it is.
And the other lesson is we're not supposed to do it alone. So how can people get a hold of you, even if they're not in the state of Florida? they can call you, and then
Sure
you
they can.
have referral networks.
I do. I always recommend that if you're hiring a bankruptcy lawyer, that you hire someone who bothered to join the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys, NACBA, NACBA. Go to their website, look up someone who is that. Also, the American Bankruptcy Institute has created a certification program, and people can become board certified in bankruptcy, like I did. There are only 2 board certified consumer bankruptcies in Tallahassee, where I am. And it was worth doing. Boy, it's a day-long exam, and it's really hard. And I don't ever want to take that exam again. So I keep my membership up, keep my certification up with tons of CLEs. And but a board certified attorney or someone who's bothered to join NACBA, they care about bankruptcy and they care about debtors. They're passionate about helping people. It's really fun to go to their annual meetings, because to be in a room of people who are totally dedicated to debtors in bankruptcy is really, they're passionate. It's really fun. I'm in Tallahassee. My telephone number is 850-425-4700. Our website is www.hathawaylaw.net. And we have information about bankruptcy on our website. You can get in touch with us that way. And I still love what I do. And my staff does too. You've just never had staff that have a client's back like my staff does. I'm so blessed.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you're out there, Kathryn. And I wish I had taken the opportunity to give you a call a little bit sooner in my life. I'm doing well now, but I do work with a lot of women that have been in this situation and are scared. They're just scared because they don't know what the first step is. And that is.
And knowing what I know about you, at the time that your husband died, I would not have recommended a bankruptcy for you. But I have other ideas.
Well, I was fortunate enough a few years later after the scam to find a wonderful man, get remarried, and he has definitely been a supporter for me and a huge advocate in everything that I'm doing. But I still have my not worries about us financially. We're going to be fine because I'm preparing in a better way now, and I'm putting myself around knowledgeable people like my friend Deborah Morrison and you and others, that we can systematically rise and prepare ourselves as best we can for the future. And that's what our goal is to be there, to be of assistance, to be hold that hand of the person that's beside us that is at wit's end, saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to get out of this? And I can't tell anybody. I'm that woman behind the smile. I can't tell anybody because I'm so ashamed of where I put myself. And we got to get past that.
Yes, we do. You'll find that where they say 7 out of 10 children in grade schools, parents have filed a bankruptcy.
Whoa, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that's one of the statistics. Elizabeth Warren brought out a lot of statistics about bankruptcy and about why, in her books about consumer debt. And she was the chair of the bankruptcy department at Harvard Law before she became the dean of Harvard Law.
Okay.
And she has a real passion, as you can see by what she's done in the Senate.
Yeah.
For debtors and consumers. And
well, everybody could be in that situation, particularly today. You pull the credit card out. And I remember one time when my children were little, and one of them said, I was very careful because we didn't have a lot of money when the kids were little. And I shopped at the Dent and Bent store, and the kids would say, Mom, just go to the bank. You had your red card. Thinking the ATM machine was my friend. And I'm thinking, kids, you have to have money in the bank to use that ATM machine. But you don't necessarily have to have money in the bank to use that credit card. So be careful. Be careful, because they're like, well, we'll just put it on the credit card. Somebody has to pay for it. And bankruptcy is not a get out of jail free card for frequent flyers.
Oh, no, definitely not. It's a last resort. And you don't ever want to, there are laws against charging up your cards and then filing a bankruptcy, doing it on purpose.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well,
It's always been fraud.
Right. Right. And that's the key word in our business here is financial fraud and protecting yourself from it. Don't be a part of it by trying to game the system. Kathryn, our hour has flown by. I knew it would. And you've got such great information. And I want people to really understand that bankruptcy is a tool.
Mhm.
It's one of those things that we need to learn about in case it might be the best tool in the toolbox. It may not be, but at least let's be aware. So my whole platform of beware and be aware of this, be aware of what you're doing and serving others in such a special way, relieving that anxiety and tension that I know I would have had walking into your office or giving you a call. It's just a conversation.
Yes.
It
to
is.
quote our friend Trish Carr.
Exactly. It's just a conversation, and it's one that's really important. And I honor you for that and for rising like a phoenix. Thank you so much for being my guest.
And thank you so much for what you're doing, Debbie. It's so important that you are raising awareness of the issues that you do and educating us all. Thank you. Thank you for your dedication and passion.
Well, my pleasure. And again, thanks for being my friend. Thanks for being my guest and for doing what you're doing in Florida and around the world. Have a great day, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye, dear.
Thank you for listening to Stand Up and Speak Up. We are dedicated to encouraging you to remove the mask of embarrassment and to being your best self. If you are the victim of a scam or cybercrime, please visit againstscams.org for assistance and guidance about options and recovery. SCARS, the Society of Citizens Against Relationship Scams, is an incorporated nonprofit crime victims assistance organization based in Miami, Florida, supporting scam victims worldwide. If you can, make a small donation to help victims around the world receive the help they need. This episode has been sponsored by BenfoComplete.com, a vitamin supplement company that supports happy and healthy hands and feet for those with neuropathy. If you or anyone you know struggles with the pins and needles or numbness in their hands and feet, check out our benfotiamine products at BenfoComplete.com. Use the special code STANDUP for a 5% discount on your purchase. Again, thank you for being with us today. Go to my website, The Woman Behind the Smile, for additional resources and information. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and enjoy the replays. My books are all available on Amazon.com and Audible, and I encourage you to join us again. Have a great day.